Welcome back to the Not Just a Pony Ride podcast. I'm your host, Katie Ott, and today we are talking about something new and different we decided to do at HETRA that went really, really well, and we just got done with it. We're talking about Ground Week programming today. So I have two guests with me. I have Miss Emma and Miss Brittany. Emma, do you want to introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do for HETRA?
Yep. I'm Emma Bunda. I am the Equine Operations Coordinator, and I'm also a CTRI here at HETRA, and I've been here for 2 years now.
We're so thankful to have you on the team. Tell me a little bit about your week. So you have a regular caseload of participants as well as in addition to your horse team things, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then Miss Brittany, introduce yourself.
I'm Brittany. I am the program outreach coordinator here at HETRA as well as an occupational therapist, and I've been here for 3 years now.
Excellent. And you carry a caseload of therapy participants, a quite large one.
Yes, I do. I'm out here 3 nights a week.
Awesome. Okay, so you guys are going to offer a couple different perspectives for me on this because it is a decision that we made starting this year in 2026 to offer this ground week. What it looked like was everybody did some type of activity, but unmounted. So it could have been with horses, leading, grooming, tacking, something along those lines, working with the horses in sort of an equine assisted learning type of a environment. But it also could have been other things in the barn, right? Like we're feeding horses, where you could talk about like finances related to horses. You could talk about nutrition, all kinds of different things that are different than just being mounted in with the horse. And so we also have the equicizer, which I think is handy. We'll talk about a couple of different things that we saw over this week. So I'll lay the background for you guys a little bit at HETRA if you're new to us. So we are an equine assisted services center that offers adaptive riding, therapy services, carriage driving, a breadth of group programming and ground programming, life skills, all kinds of things. And we run our programming in 4 12-week courses. So we're just did we just finish?
Just now in course B.
Yeah, course B. Okay, so we run course A, B, C, D, so 4 quarters, and that allows us to sort of chunk our scheduling out in that way, and it's great for both of our horses and our participants scheduling wise. So I want to kind of pick Emma's brain a little bit from the your equine operations hat, if you will. So you help us keep our horses happy, healthy, sane, and sound. Why did we implement this in the first place? Why did we start talking about this?
Yep. So we don't always have a break week every course, like Katie said. So they kind of go every 2 courses. We have a full break week where horses have off. So we kind of started seeing that our horses needed a break a little bit sooner. So that's why we thought a ground program would be a good option because we kind of are lucky enough to have a different group of horses that specialize more in ground and horses that specialize more in mounted work. So by doing a ground week, we were able to use a different set of horses for that week and give kind of our steady eddies and guys that are in lessons pretty heavily a break.
Mm-hmm. What do you think a break does for our horses, like in when you would talk about preventing burnout or just managing their overall health?
Yeah, so we didn't even do conditioning, which is something we normally do 3 days a week. So we gave them all the week off of conditioning, which means like the horse team and our volunteers are not riding them, lunging them, anything like that. So that was just a nice break for them.
Mm-hmm.
They got to stay outside a little bit longer during the week. Usually when we have lessons, they come in at 2:30, but they were able to stay out till like 5:30 at night, which was really nice. And we were lucky enough to have good weather that they were able to do that. It also just gives them a little bit of a brain break that they're doing something different than just doing their mounted work. So we did a lot of different activities that were new to the horses, and I think that kind of gives them a freshness to them of like, oh, interesting, I'm doing something different this week. And just overall being able to just be a horse for a week, I think that really does a lot for their welfare.
For sure. If you think about you and I, like we go to work every single day, 5 days a week or whatever it is. And if you never ever, could take a week off or take some time off for yourself, it would be, even if you loved your job, you'd be like, okay, I need a break, right? So I think that this gave our horses some variety in what they're doing and give them a little break.
Mm-hmm.
What about from a participant standpoint, Brittany? What do you think is kind of the benefits or the value to switching it up for them?
For the participants, I think I'm gonna put my therapy hat on for a second. There's so many different things that you can work on from the ground.
Mhm.
So one group that we did from a therapy perspective, we're usually working one-on-one, not so much in a group aspect. So a couple of times I took my participant and I worked with the other therapist or the instructors, and we did a giant group activity where we really got to work on those social skills and teamwork skills, problem solving, and then got to incorporate the horses in a different way. So I think the participants got to see more
Mhm.
than just the back of our horses' bodies.
Right, yeah, it gives them variety too. But just logistically, from you guys as programming staff that had that, we're going to do this programming ground week for everybody. Did you have any hesitations coming into this week or like concerns transitioning all of your riders or your participants to ground for this week?
I think I definitely have a couple participants that have traditionally been hesitant to ground programming in the past,
Mhm.
whether it's like we canceled for weather or we went to ground because it was too hot. Like they've always traditionally said, like, we're not interested in ground programming. And so I think that was a little bit of a hesitation, like, oh, are they going to come? And
Mhm.
obviously, we can't control if everyone decides that they want to come, but
Right.
all of my participants did decide to come. And so I think that that email we sent prior really helped parents understand like why we're doing this and what we're going to be doing, that we're not just kind of standing on the ground staring at our horses.
Mhm.
And so it was good to see that they actually came and gave it a chance, and even more so from the parents' end. Like this is something that's equally as valuable as
Mhm.
mounted riding. So that was good.
Yeah, that's it was a huge part of when we started adding this new routine into our HETRA schedule was just the education part to the parents so that they know what's going on, what to expect, and why it's so beneficial. What other hesitations did you have coming in, Brittany?
I think the same as Emma, like just I didn't really get a whole lot of pushback, but if I did see like any signs of like, oh, we're not riding today, it's like just taking it back to the horses
Mhm.
because our participants and our families care about our horses just as much as we do.
Mhm.
And just reminding them like, hey, we take PTO, right?
Mhm.
Like our horses need PTO too. So as soon as you explained it that way, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And I think a lot of the participants and a lot of the families had a lot saw the benefits of it, and especially since we have that equicizer,
Mhm.
we're still able to do some mounted
Mhm.
activities.
Quote unquote, yeah. I think especially for those participants where, and especially in therapy services, they come to HETRA to, partner with the horses because maybe other types of traditional therapies have not been as successful. And so being able to still implement, the horse or the mounted work with the equicizer, whatever the case may be, to have options for the participants that maybe struggle more with that traditional type therapy or group work or things like that, I think was really good for us as well. This episode is sponsored by Killian Insurance Agency. Killian Insurance Agency proudly serves the EAS and EAP communities, offering insurance solutions tailored to your unique needs. They provide coverage for therapy horses, equipment, camps, events, and facilities while addressing the specific liability concerns of your programs. Whether you operate an EAS center, provide EAP services, or manage a ranch or farm without these programs, they're here to protect your work. If you're new to the EAS or EAP industry, they can guide you through the coverage process. Contact Killian Insurance Agency today to discuss how they can help safeguard your critical impact that you make on individuals and communities. Find them at www.farmequineinsurance.com or at the link in the show notes. So let's talk about a few of the activities you guys did. So we have two perspectives. We have a therapist and an instructor. Tell me two of your favorite activities you did that you think your participants really enjoyed this week.
One that I did that was pretty like traditional and basic, I would say, was just grooming on the ground and then some basic leading. And the two participants that I did that with are usually very like rushed kiddos. Like they come in, they ride, and they're like, see you later. So it was nice for them to come in and like actually see their horse and brush and what each brush does and take that time to just kind of have that one-on-one with the horse. And it was nice to be able to use in some circumstances the horses that they ride most of the time so that they kind of build a different relationship with that horse on the ground. So the grooming part was interesting, just kind of getting them to be mindful and slow down. But then the leading was interesting too, because they've never done that before. And so
Mhm.
they were like, oh, like I can control my horse from the ground too. Like it saw a lot of like shock in their face that they were like actually on the ground and controlling their horse.
Mhm.
Just realizing how much their body matters on the ground, and when they stopped, their horse would stop. If they didn't, why didn't your horse stop?
Mhm.
So I felt like that was very like empowering for them in a sense.
For sure. And like building that relationship and that connection from the ground for them is so much different than when we're riding.
Yeah.
Do you think that will have an impact on them, like when they go back to regular mountain programming the next week?
I think so. I almost feel like it's going to be more of like, oh, I see my horse versus it just being like a tool that they run and use.
Definitely more of a partner.
Yes.
I love that.
And then I have a bigger group of like 3 participants, and so we did making grain, kind of talking through what our horses get, like just seeing them navigate kind of, okay, I have to read the feed chart. Where's the scoop? Where's the grain? Like how much goes in there? What bucket do I have to put it in? Even like how do I hold the bucket and the scoop at the same time to like get it in there? And different supplements was interesting for them to see. Like we give all our horses salt, and so many participants were like, salt? Like why do we give our horses salt? And so explaining like it keeps them drinking and stuff like
Mhm.
that. That's I saw like a lot of natural like teamwork in that. Like that wasn't something I was pushing for necessarily, but one of our participants would always be like, "Oh, can I help you with that?" Or like, "Let's do it together." And so then we like loaded our hay truck, and so getting them to see like the different types of hay and actually like lifting the hay
Oh,
bales, and
fun.
they were like all 3 of them were doing it together, lifting one bale, and so it was really cute. And then we just went down and did like some herd observation and saw the horses that are outside and what they do, and that they were kind of shocked that even some horses lived outside here. They were like, "Oh my gosh, they stay outside all the time." So it was just cool to give them kind of more of a behind the scenes view and
Mhm.
understanding of like how much work and goes into having all these horses. And
Yeah. Because I think there's so much more. I mean, horsemanship and being good horse owner is so much more than just riding.
right.
And so being able to show them other sides of that is creates a well-rounded experience for them.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool. All right, Brittany, a couple of things that you guys did this week.
So I also did some grooming and leading, so I won't talk about that one. But one that I really enjoyed is a game that we call Sharks in the Water,
Mm.
where we took a group of both therapy participants and adaptive riders, and we all worked together. If you're not familiar with Sharks in the Water, we take a couple of lunge lines and create a quote unquote island in the arena, and then we throw a bunch of toys and puzzles around the arena, and they have to work together to retrieve the items and follow instructions, not fall in the water. So you're working on impulse control, but also that team building and social skills. And it was really just fun for me to see some of these participants who never interact with each other start to work together and have a common goal and work through the puzzles. And then the last thing we do is we get to lead the minis onto the island. So that was a really cool thing and something very different. One of the participants came in and he saw the arena and he was like, "It's a mess in here." So that was pretty funny.
I love that we get to combine some like participants that like in therapy services we're working one on one, but they always see those, other kids in their lesson, at the same time. And so we get to maybe work together for some things that overlap well for therapy services, but also in adaptive writing when your groups are together, they don't get to work that closely.
Right.
So that stuff kind of comes out more naturally, and maybe we'll build a more cohesive like class for you, Emma,
Right.
going forward, or maybe some extra social skills
Mm.
for you guys in therapy services. So, what surprised you about this ground week now that it's all said and done? We had some hesitations going in. We did the things. We loved it. The horses loved it. What surprised you about this ground week?
I think what surprised me the most was like how you could see it on participants' faces, like how like empowered they were,
Mhm.
like smiling. And it gave me a little bit better of a chance to like talk to my participants. Like as an instructor, I feel like most of the time we're always kind of like telling them what to do and this is the next pattern and watch this safety thing. But it gave me more of a chance to be like, so what'd you have for lunch today? And like, oh, I noticed you got your haircut. Like, tell me about your haircut. Just like funny, goofy things and like more of a chance to like build that rapport with them versus just coming in, writing for 30 minutes and then leaving. And parents seemed really shocked too. Like my participants were like skipping out of the door, like to their car. Like they were very excited to like go back out and like talk about what they did. And so I think that's going to be the biggest difference is like participants telling that to their parents and parents being like, "Oh, like you enjoyed that? Okay, cool. Good to know." Because I feel like some of the times they don't actually
I don't know what to
consider
expect.
that they might
Yeah.
enjoy that. They're just like, "Nope, they're not going to do that." Whereas we give them a chance and kind of options on what they want to do and that they actually do like it was
Yeah.
interesting to see.
Yeah, creating that buy-in a little bit more from the
Yes.
family too. And I think we're going to be sharing some things on social media and stuff too to hopefully kind of spread the word. So maybe if there were some families that didn't participate in Ground Week, maybe they'll be inspired to come to the next one.
Yep.
Brittany, anything that surprised you?
I was surprised how much I enjoyed it. Like it was a breath of fresh air for me too, because I feel like when we every week we mount, it's like, okay, we're gonna do this activity and then we're gonna do this activity, and you kind of end up in this rut
Mm-hmm.
where it doing the ground allowed me and other therapists and instructors to have something different to kind of give us even a reset too to do.
Yeah, for sure. From both sides of it, I think is a good reset. That's a good word for it.
And I think even on the volunteer side of that, a lot of our volunteers were really like, "Oh, this is cool." Like, and it was a lot slower in the barn, like not hurrying up and getting horses in and groomed and saddled and all that stuff. Like, we got a lot of feedback from our volunteers, like, "Oh, this was a nice, like, kind of break week." They were still
Mhm.
here and interacting, but it wasn't as, didn't require as much manpower, and we didn't have as many volunteers needed on site.
Mhm.
But even they were kind of very engaged in what we were doing and excited to see their participants that they work with every week doing something different. And so I think that was a huge benefit for Ground Week too.
That's a super great point. I bet if we had someone from the volunteer team here, they would say, "Yeah, it was a nice reset for us too."
Mhm. Yeah.
Do you think that overall the scheduling part of it ran pretty smoothly? I think that is a part that's maybe a little bit tricky because when we are in the routine, it's like these same horses are tacked in and you know we kind of have that groove that we do all the time. Whereas this is a little different. We might have participants that can't do this or can't do that. So we really let our therapists and instructors take the reins, if you will, on what they wanted to do for their group programming. We didn't really assign that to anybody per se. So, how did you guys feel like the scheduling part of it went? Did you just have to communicate, like with the horse team, with you, Emma, to say, I need a horse for leading or grooming, or we're just going to go do, nutrition or, feeding or whatever? How did you guys manage that part of it?
Yeah. So everyone on our schedule emailed our volunteer team and said what we were going to do for the week.
As a staff, right? Your
Yes.
therapist or instructor.
Yes. And then we put that in the schedule, like literally what we're gonna do, what horses we need. And then horse team went through and kind of plugged horses in. And it was pretty easy. Like everyone pretty much picked a different spot in the
Mhm.
arena or in our facility. Like I don't feel like we ran into people needing the same
Yeah,
space as
overnight.
much as I thought we were going to going from there, like what kind of horse they needed. So we're lucky enough to have our minis. And I think that was the biggest thing we ran into was like everyone kind of wanted the minis and
Mhm.
we only have 4 minis. So we had to kind of disperse through the rest of our herd, like, okay, can this participant work with a horse or do they absolutely need a
Yeah.
mini? And so I think that was the biggest like conflict.
Having that conversation. And
Yeah.
I think having for therapists and instructors to have an open mind with what they want to do. Because if you do run into a jam where everybody would like to partner with the minis, or hey, can we do a group activity, or can we, try a different horse or whatever, and being open to that conversation.
Right.
Yeah. Do you feel like from the therapy side of things it went well?
It really did. And we also, being that we thought we were going to have a lot more people wanting our equisizers.
Right.
I think a lot of therapists were able to think outside the box and do different things. And I think it really just helped that we had really nice weather.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Yeah, that was
were
fortunate.
able to be outside on the sensory trail,
Mhm.
or we have a pen that we are able to use as well. And so that just allowed for more flexibility
Yeah.
throughout the barn. When we put our brains together, like I think we can all come up with really fun ideas.
And I think giving them options was really good for me, giving my participants options on what they wanted to do. And that was a little
Yeah.
hard from a scheduling standpoint because then maybe I had a volunteer and I didn't necessarily need that volunteer.
Mhm.
Um, But I think definitely having options for them to pick, like, okay, I'm a little bit more in control of what I want to do in
Yeah.
this ground week versus like you're coming and you're grooming.
Yeah, it increases the motivation for sure to have the choices. Yeah. Okay. Well, this was really good. Thank you for both of you for sharing your perspectives on Ground Week. If anyone who's listening has more questions about how we handled it from kind of a policy standpoint, or want to implement something like this in your center, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to chat with you. This is the first time we've done it, so we're just kind of doing, changing things as we go and seeing what works and what sticks. And I think this is going to stick.
I hope it sticks.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it will for sure.
And the other thing too is we live in Nebraska, so you never know what the weather's going to do.
Right.
So, we're coming into summer, and if we have a week where it's really, really hot and we're going to be on the ground anyway, that would kind of serve as our ground week, I guess. So that's staying flexible in new policies that you make, I think is always really important, and just going with the flow and doing what your participants need and what your horses need.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for stopping by. We'll see you guys again, I'm sure.
That's all for today. But until the next episode launches, scroll down to the show notes and click on the link to get plugged in with us on Facebook, Instagram, or our exclusive educational club at Patreon. This podcast is presented by HETRA University, the educational arm of Heartland Equine Therapeutic Riding Academy in Gretna, Nebraska. HETRA University's mission is to provide high-quality educational offerings to the EAS community. Check out all the HETRA University has to offer at www.hetrauniversity.org.